Let's take a trip back in time, way back, to a caravan. Winding its way across the Gobi Desert, loaded with silks and spices, headed for, well, lands unknown. This, my friend, is the surprisingly ancient starting point for our deep dive into the history of supply chains.
It's a long way from camels to cargo ships.
Yeah.
And then container ships.
Right.
But the journey itself, I think, holds some surprising lessons.
It really does.
Yeah.
You know, it is fascinating how we often think of supply chain management as this modern invention, but when its roots are really firmly planted in these ancient trade networks.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating how those, it's how we often think of supply chain management as a modern invention when its roots are so firmly planted in these ancient trade networks.
We've all heard of the Silk Road.
Right.
But most people probably picture, well, silk.
Right.
Pretty fabrics, maybe some exotic spices.
Sure.
But the reality is the Silk Road was about so much more.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of logistical hurdles did those early traders have to overcome?
Well, I mean, imagine navigating treacherous mountain passes, vast deserts, where a sandstorm could swallow you whole.
Yeah.
Not to mention the very real threat of bandits.
Oh, yeah.
And these journeys could take months, even years to complete.
Talk about a crash course in risk management.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to have to be incredibly adaptable just to survive a single trip.
Yeah.
Let alone build a successful business.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And their business acumen went far beyond bartering. You know, these ancient traders were pioneers of early globalization, skilled diplomats, navigating cultural differences.
Yeah.
And forging agreements across languages they didn't even speak. They were masters of logistics centuries before that term even existed.
It makes you realize just how deeply intertwined supply chains have always been with the development of civilizations. I mean, we think of getting a package delivered in 2 days as standard now.
Right.
But back then, the very act of transporting goods could transform entire societies.
Absolutely.
It really could. Take the Silk Road, for example. It wasn't just an economic engine.
Right.
It was a conduit for knowledge.
Yeah.
And cultural exchange.
It was. And we're talking about spices from the East. Not just tantalizing Roman palates, but, introducing new medicinal knowledge.
Right.
Or think about the spread of Buddhism along these very trade routes.
Yeah.
Forever changing the religious landscape of entire regions. You can even find Persian words embedded in Chinese dialects, a testament to the linguistic exchange fostered by these interactions.
Wow. It really highlights how much more there is to supply chains than just moving stuff around.
Yeah.
They've always been this fascinating mix of logistics, diplomacy, and cultural exchange.
Absolutely. And as we move forward in time, that complexity it intensifies.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next pivotal chapter in our story takes us to the Industrial Revolution, where the steam engine completely reshaped the world.
Yeah.
And revolutionized the very concept of a supply chain.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think we all know the steam engine was a big deal. But what did it actually change about how goods were produced and transported?
Well, imagine the shift from handcrafted goods to mass production.
Yeah.
Suddenly, instead of a craftsman in a small workshop,
Right.
you have these massive factories churning out products.
Yeah.
At an unprecedented scale.
Yeah.
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 It was a complete upheaval of how things were made.
It's like going from a neighborhood bakery
Right.
to a factory producing thousands of loaves an hour. All those ingredients, all those finished goods.
Yeah.
It must have been a logistical nightmare.
Precisely. And that's where the steam engine really changed the game. You see steam-powered trains and ships.
Yeah.
Meant goods could be transported faster,
Yeah.
further, and in significantly larger quantities than ever before.
Wow.
It completely transformed the concept of distance and opened up entirely new markets.
And with larger markets come new challenges. I can't even imagine trying to keep track of all that inventory without modern technology.
You're hitting on a crucial point. The Industrial Revolution, it wasn't just about machines and factories.
Right.
It was a period of immense innovation in how we think about organization and efficiency.
Okay.
Think about the sheer volume of raw materials.
Yeah.
Finished goods moving around. They needed ways to manage this complexity, and that led to some of the early foundations of modern supply chain thinking.
So what did that look like? Were people just scribbling furiously in giant ledgers?
There were certainly a lot of ledgers.
I bet.
But we start to see the emergence of more sophisticated systems.
Okay.
Double entry bookkeeping, for instance, was a game changer in terms of financial tracking.
Right.
And then there were innovations, standardized timetables for trains, which allowed for more predictable and reliable transportation.
Okay.
These might seem like small changes, but they were laying the groundwork for the interconnected global supply chains we see today.
It sounds like the world was getting thrawler even before airplanes entered the picture.
Exactly. But then, of course, the first half of the 20th century threw a wrench in the gears, wouldn't you say?
2 world wars and a devastating global depression will do that. Talk about supply chain disruption.
Yeah, it's a period that's often overlooked in the grand narrative of supply chain history.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to understanding the interconnectedness of the global economy. These conflicts force nations to think strategically about resource allocation, production capacity, and the vital importance of efficient logistics.
It's like the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
I imagine wartime shortages and logistical nightmares led to some pretty significant innovations.
Absolutely. Take World War II, for example.
Okay.
The sheer scale of the conflict demanded unprecedented levels of coordination and efficiency in moving troops, supplies, and information. This period saw the development of sophisticated logistical techniques, like the use of operations research to optimize shipping routes, and the deployment of early computers to crack enemy codes and manage trip movements.
So even in the midst of global conflict, we see the seeds being sown for future advancements in supply chain management.
Precisely. And those advancements really begin to blossom. In the post-war era, after experiencing the devastation of 2 world wars, there was this collective desire to rebuild.
Right.
And to avoid future conflicts.
And part of that involved building a more interconnected global economy, right?
Exactly. The thinking was that greater economic interdependence would make countries less likely to engage in war with each other.
Right.
And this desire for global cooperation led to the creation of institutions like the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT-TT, the precursor to the World Trade Organization. These organizations aim to reduce trade barriers and foster greater economic cooperation between nations.
It was like the world had learned its lesson about the dangers of isolationism.
It really was. And for businesses, this shift towards globalization presented both incredible opportunities and daunting challenges. Suddenly, they weren't just competing with companies down the street. They were competing with companies on the other side of the globe.
Right.
Yeah.
Which meant they needed more efficient, more sophisticated ways to manage their supply chains.
Precisely. And as luck could have it, another revolution was brewing on the horizon.
Oh.
One that would fundamentally change how we think about information, communication, and efficiency. The computer revolution.
Ah, yes. From steam engines to silicon chips. But let's be honest, when most people think of computers, they don't immediately think of cargo ships and warehouses.
Right.
So how did this so-called silent revolution actually transform the way supply chains operate?
I mean, it's almost hard to imagine managing any kind of complex operation today without computers.
Right.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
But I can see how, back then the connection between these newfangled computers and the world of logistics might not have been immediately obvious.
It was a gradual shift.
Yeah.
But it touched every aspect of how supply chains operate.
It really did.
Think about a challenge as basic as inventory management.
Right.
Before computers, you're relying on manual counts, stacks of paper, and a whole lot of guesswork.
A lot of guesswork.
It was time-consuming, prone to errors, and incredibly difficult to scale.
Incredibly.
You know how frustrating it is to overstock on ingredients only to have them go bad?
Right.
Now imagine managing a factory's worth of materials without spreadsheets.
Exactly. But with computers, suddenly you could track inventory in real time. Analyze data to predict future needs.
Wow.
And even automate ordering processes. This was the birth of systems like material requirements planning.
Okay.
Or MRP.
MRP.
Which help businesses optimize their inventory levels and reduce waste.
MRP, it sounds like the precursor to the sophisticated enterprise resource planning systems businesses use today.
It is.
Those ERPs we hear so much about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As computers became more powerful and interconnected, these systems evolved to integrate even more aspects of a business, from finance and human resources to production and distribution.
Wow.
It was like having a central nervous system for your entire operation with real-time visibility into every department and every stage of the supply chain.
Talk about a control freak's dream.
Right.
But seriously, I can see how that level of integration and visibility would be revolutionary.
Oh, absolutely.
No more silos, just seamless communication and data-driven decision-making.
And it's not just about control.
Right.
It's about agility.
Okay.
With these systems in place, businesses could adapt to changes in demand, disruptions to their supply chain, and even seize new opportunities much faster than ever before.
And this newfound agility became even more crucial with the rise of the internet and e-commerce.
Oh, absolutely.
Suddenly, geographical boundaries seemed to disappear overnight.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Consumers could order practically anything with a few clicks, and they expected it delivered to their doorstep in a matter of days, if not hours.
Right, exactly.
This created an entirely new set of challenges and opportunities for supply chain management.
It did. It really did.
It was no longer enough to be efficient. You had to be incredibly fast and responsive.
You did.
We've gone from caravans to computers to clicks.
That's right.
It's dizzying to think about how much the world has changed.
And that pace of change has only accelerated.
Right.
The internet didn't just connect businesses to consumers. It connected everything to everything.
Yeah.
And with that interconnectedness came a deluge of data.
Data everywhere. It's not just about having information, it's what you do with it.
Exactly.
And that's where things get really interesting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the early days of computerization, it was all about automating existing processes, making them faster and more efficient. But as data became more abundant and processing power increased exponentially, we entered a new era.
Okay.
The age of data analytics and artificial intelligence.
Okay. The buzzwords of the 21st century. But in all seriousness, how have these technologies actually changed how we think about and manage supply chains?
Well, imagine having a crystal ball, but instead of vague predictions, you get actionable insights backed by mountains of data. That's the promise of AI and supply chain management.
Okay.
We're talking about systems that can analyze massive data sets to identify patterns and anomalies that humans might miss.
Wow.
Systems that can predict future demand with incredible accuracy, optimize inventory levels to minimize waste, and even anticipate potential disruptions before they occur.
It sounds like instead of reacting to problems after the fact, businesses can now get ahead of the curve and proactively address issues before they even arise.
That's the goal.
That's incredible.
And AI is also transforming other aspects of the supply chain, like logistics and transportation.
Okay.
We're talking about AI-powered routing algorithms that optimize delivery routes in real time, taking into account traffic conditions, weather patterns, and even fuel efficiency.
It's incredible to think how far we've come from those early days of manual inventory tracking.
It is, isn't it?
And it's not just AI, right? There are other technological forces at play that are transforming the world of supply chains.
There are.
Tell me about blockchain.
So blockchain is like the ultimate trust builder for supply chains.
Okay.
Imagine a digital ledger that's distributed across multiple computers where every transaction is recorded and linked to the previous one, creating an immutable record that can't be tampered with.
Okay.
This has huge implications for transparency and traceability.
So no more shady dealings or counterfeit goods slipping through the cracks.
In theory, that's the idea.
Okay.
With blockchain, you can track the journey of a product from the raw materials to the factory to the store shelf, with each step verified and recorded on the blockchain.
Okay.
Consumers can have confidence in the authenticity and origin of the products they're buying.
It's amazing to think that a technology initially developed for digital currencies is now being used to revolutionize the way we track and manage physical goods.
It really is.
It really speaks to the interconnectedness of our modern world.
And this interconnectedness is only going to deepen.
Right.
Imagine a future where the Internet of Things is even more pervasive, where everything from trucks to shipping containers to individual products is equipped with sensors that collect and transmit data in real time.
It sounds like the supply chain of the future will be a truly intelligent, interconnected web.
It really will be.
What an incredible journey it's been, from those ancient Silk Road caravans to AI-powered warehouses and blockchain-enabled transparency.
Yeah.
It really makes you appreciate how far we've come and how much ingenuity has gone into building the complex systems that keep our world running.
And it's a journey that's far from over.
Right.
As we face new challenges, from climate change to resource scarcity to the ethical implications of AI, the way we design and manage our supply chains will continue to evolve.
It's both exciting and a little daunting, wouldn't you say? From camel to computer chip to who knows what technological marvels lie ahead.
That's right.
One thing's for sure, the story of supply chains is ultimately a human story, a testament to our ability to adapt, innovate, and connect with each other on a global scale. So the next time you order something online or pick up a product at the store, Take a moment to consider the incredible journey it took to get there.
It's pretty amazing.
You might be surprised by what you discover.